Hello, good afternoon.
Hi.
So this is not your first time in Israel, right? You've been
No,
here
I've
many
been here
times.
many times, countless times.
And your first time as a teacher was around...
1987 in Jerusalem.
Do you see any kind of changes?
Well, the only change that I see in people is the change I see all around the Western world. Is I think that more people are starting to get a little bit more serious because people are getting a little scared about the future, not just in the Middle East, but I just think I think people realize there's a global crisis, and people realize that the good life's not going to go on forever, and it's forcing them to ask deeper questions. So I can tell when people are listening that they're bringing there's a deeper sense of seriousness in the way people are listening, I think, for those reasons. So that I see.
Okay, because if you're talking about serious questions, then you are the founder and the editor of the magazine which deals with the most deepest questions, and the name is What is Enlightenment? Mm-hmm. Is there any way, after 20 years or much of your teaching and studying, can you sum it up for us? Is there an answer for that? Is there one answer for that?
Well, it's a complex question, but the simple answer that enlightenment traditionally means it's the experience of consciousness beyond the ego.
Mm-hmm. The concept of enlightenment is an Eastern concept.
Yes.
And when it went to the West, it was westernized. From my point of view, it became a little bit like a prize, like a reward, like a game show that if you stick onto it, at the end you get the big card, you get this big enlightenment.
Well, traditionally it's meant to, the reason for that is traditionally enlightenment is meant to be the end of the path. Mm-hmm. So that means when someone, quote unquote, becomes enlightened, it means that it traditionally means their development has come to an end. So they're like fully cooked and it's all over, but actually it's not really true. Mm-hmm. Especially when I teach now, I put the word evolutionary, which means developmental, before the word enlightenment. I call it evolutionary enlightenment. So now the idea is to learn what it means to experience the self beyond the ego, and then to learn what it means to develop as a human being at the deepest and highest levels from beyond the ego. So it's an endless process. There's not really an end to it. And I think a lot of the problems in postmodern culture, and definitely is the case here in Israel as it is in the West, is that there's a lot of very highly educated individuals who come from relatively wealthy backgrounds, mm-hmm. who are basically very spoiled, who has more or less been given everything they've wanted and more or less been able to do everything they wanted to do. And it's created a mentality where we somehow have been given the idea that life is for us, like life is our oyster, and the way we think about everything from money to human relationships is very self-serving. It's very small-minded, and very few people have a spiritually and philosophically big-minded and big-hearted relationship to life itself. And so the leap that I think we need to take is to go from being teenagers, no matter what age we are, to adults, to really embracing a level of maturity in relationship to life, so we can outgrow this kind of narcissism and this materialism and this pathological small-minded self-concern.
Israel as a society, just about a month ago, went through some kind of things that you're talking about, because we were in a state of war. And when one is in a state of war, there's this kind of unity. People physically, emotionally opened their heart, opened their wallet, and helped other people around.
Sure.
Are we talking about that same kind of unity?
No, it's different, because human beings throughout history have always been able to come together, mm-hmm. in unselfish ways when they have been collectively, physically threatened. When our lives when we're part of a particular group or a part of a particular tribe or a particular family or a culture, when we're collectively being threatened, when our life is being threatened, we find ways to work together. Mm-hmm. And we notice that when the threat goes away, we usually go back to bickering and to fighting. Mm. So I don't think there's anything particularly miraculous about that. But I mean, of course, it's always very heartening when you can see people come together for a higher reason. But unfortunately, human beings haven't progressed beyond the ability to come together for higher reasons only when they're being physically threatened in wartime.
But isn't it a bit difficult to tell the people, especially the people in Israel, you have to care about higher things when they have to deal with war? Just
survival.
It's about survival. And it's not a cliche. It really is about survival.
I am not going to argue with that point. I agree with you. But the point is that when the war comes to an end, and I'm sure another war is going to start soon, but nevertheless, even when we take the whole question of war and survival away, you still see that the postmodern Israeli culture seems to be it's very materialistic and it's very narcissistic. It's just like American culture. The values of secular Israeli culture stink. I mean, and it's not healthy, and a lot of the well, you can tell a lot of the younger people are suffering the consequences. Young people are arrogant and they walk around with a sense of entitlement and privilege and are very confused. They're existentially confused, and so as a culture, I think a leap needs to be taken. And I know that a large segment of the Israeli population has rejected, traditional Judaism as a place to look for morality and as a place to look for meaning. So if that's the case, we're going to have to find a way to recreate a moral, ethical, and philosophical framework for life. We're going to have to do, because without it, we simply aren't doing very well.
You have your own theory. You want people to grow up. On the other hand, you have all this very big marketing that goes to being selfish, being narcissistic, getting your own stuff, getting a bigger car, getting better clothes.
Yeah, that's from the culture.
How can you defeat something so big and so strong and that something goes right into the culture?
What we have to do is we have to come together, those of us who are waking up, and create a cultural revolution. Mm-hmm. Just like that happened in the 60s. We need to make a cultural revolution in terms of consciousness. We have to make a revolution in the pursuit of meaning and higher values, because they are not out there. If you look out there, all you see is materialism and narcissism. Those are the values.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
so it's
right.
survival.
Yeah.
Survival. And
if you survive, so you get a big car.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So that stinks, and it's a mess. We live in a cultural climate of irony. You know what irony is? Irony and cynicism. So we don't believe in anything higher than our own egos. So hopefully, individuals like me who are kind of real are trying to challenge our tendency to reduce everything to irony and to challenge our cynicism. And it's a very difficult thing to do. And as long as we're cynical, it's going to be very difficult for us to give ourselves to anything wholeheartedly. Not just the spiritual life, but anything in life, because we're always going to be doubting whether something that is ultimately good is truly possible.
But doubting is also a very noble way of looking at it. You have to doubt what people tell you. You have to doubt certain beliefs. Otherwise, if you're open-hearted to everything, there's no...
I'm not talking about being naive and foolish.
Yeah.
I believe in being skeptical. Mm-hmm. But being cynicism means there's an inherent and profound doubt about a fundamental goodness in the life process itself. That means we really don't believe in God. Yeah. Because you see, for someone who truly believes in God, they know that at the core of everything there's a basic and fundamental goodness that's inherent to the process. And so that gives you faith in life. So even if things are very challenging, and even if you meet evil people, you still know that the process is good, and it gives your soul a lot of strength.